All right, so this is just a quick video so that students can catch up in section 2 for chapter 4 in biology. We're talking about photosynthesis and we're going to describe the process of photosynthesis. So the two main things that I need you guys to have for this section, I need you to, somewhere in your notes, have a picture of a chloroplast. So if I just made kind of a circle here, right, containing some smaller disc-shaped circles that we're going to call thylakoids. Right, and I'm just going to make 4 stacks here. In a real chloroplast, there'd be thousands of those stacks, but one of these things is a thylakoid. They contain that pigment, that chlorophyll that's green. That's why I made them green. A stack of thylakoids, like this stack right here, would be called a granum. Excuse me, the pen's not working. Granum for singular. It'd be grana if it was plural. So there are 4 stacks of thylakoids in this chloroplast, so there are 4 grana. I also need to know that the fluid surrounding those thylakoids is called the stroma. So this area surrounding the thylakoids is filled with a fluid. That fluid is called the stroma. And that's where our reactions are happening in photosynthesis. They're either happening in the thylakoid or they're happening in the stroma. Otherwise, later in the notes, this question pops up, and I'm going to draw a picture for this question because it answers a lot of things in the notes and has all the pictures in it that we might need. So I have 2 different reactions, 2 distinct reactions happening in photosynthesis. The first one involves water that's going to be split to make hydrogen ions and half an oxygen molecule. So 2 hydrogens, half an oxygen molecule. And in the meantime, I'm going to try and capture some energy in ATP. So I'll make some ATP from ADP. This requires sunlight energy, right? So I have to have energy coming in. Obviously, I'm going to have some kind of pigment, a green pigment to absorb that, which means this is definitely happening in the thylakoid, in that chloroplast, right? And on the surface of that thylakoid membrane, I have chlorophyll pigments that can absorb sunlight. That's where I'm going to split my water. That's where I'm going to make my ATP. Otherwise, that ATP is then later used to power the production of my glucose. So down here, I have a separate reaction. CO2 is going to be used to make my glucose. And there's a difference between top and bottom in this picture. If I separate this, the top reactions would be light dependent. The bottom reactions would be light independent. The top reactions are happening in a thylakoid. Again, it's green, so it's happening on that thylakoid membrane. The bottom reactions do not require light, which is why they're called light independent anyway, and those are happening in the stroma. So they're separate reactions, no sunlight's necessary for this. But this question itself talks about how light independent reactions actually are dependent on sunlight, because I need the light to make this ATP. And without the ATP, I wouldn't be able to power the production of this glucose. So ultimately, I have to have light energy to power those light independent reactions. I just don't use the light directly. You can't make glucose without ATP. You can't make ATP without sunlight. So these are distinct reactions happening in different parts of the cell, but they're related and connected. They're connected through that ATP molecule. The other thing in class that we talked about specifically, right, this light-dependent reaction is happening during daylight hours, right? Whereas light independent reactions could happen 24 hours a day, right? So it could be day or night. I don't need the sunlight. I just need to collect enough ATP during the day that I can continue to make that glucose overnight. So those reactions, again, don't happen in the same place in a chloroplast. One's in the thylakoid, one's in the stroma. They also don't happen at the same time of day necessarily. They can happen at the same time, but they don't have to. So this picture pretty much sums up our photosynthesis from this section. So I think I'm going to quit the video right there.